Hi everyone, welcome to VBAclasses.com. In this lesson, we are going to have a good introduction about programming. This lesson is aimed at those of you who have never written a program, or those of you who may have written some small programs during childhood and never had any formal education into programming. This lesson will help you to understand how computers think and how do we communicate with computers through programs. It is not meant to be highly technical, but still we will use some jargon and bring in some of the concepts so that it will help you to appreciate the whole VBA thingy when you are learning about it during the later weeks in VBA classes. So let us get started. What is in this? In this lesson, we will have 4 different topics. First one is computer is our secretary. So this is the whole metaphor to think computer as our secretary or a butler or something like that, so that it can do anything that we want. And how do we communicate with our secretary is all the programs that we are going to talk about. Then we will discuss various programming concepts. We will also learn about various programming lingo or the jargon. And I will provide you some tips for getting your fingers dirty. Should you ever get into programming, or should you ever use even Excel VBA to write some complex code, I think these tips will come in handy. What is programming? Of course, programming is actually it indicates an action that is being performed, whereas program is actually a noun. And according to Wikipedia, a computer program is a sequence of instructions written to perform specified tasks for a computer. I think we have a lot of words there, and it's time we break them up a little bit so that we understand one by one. So this is the word that we are defining: computer program, a sequence of instructions. What does the word sequence mean? Sequence means that there is a logical order in which the sequence is written, obviously. So let us say you are telling the computer, go ahead and add up 3 numbers, right? Go ahead and add up 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. We want the computer to find the sum of these 3 numbers and get back to us and report the value. Of course, computer can go ahead and add 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and the sum would be 6. It can also go ahead and add 2 to 3 and then add 1 to it. This value will be still 6. So in this simple scenario, the sequence, the order in which you execute, do these steps of adding 1 to 2, 2 to 3 would not really matter, because sum as such is a very simple operation, and it really does not matter in which order you run the sum. But there are various things in real life which require that you follow a set of instructions. For example, if you go out and you want to go to Walmart or a neighborhood store and get some bread, the instruction for that should be followed in more or less a tight sequence, otherwise you will have problems. For example, imagine myself getting into a car and going to the nearby supermarket to get some bread. The instructions are like this: get into the car, start the car, reverse it and get out of the apartment or the building where I'm living, get onto the road, change the gears, and then move towards the store. Once I'm near the store, I should park my car, lock it, and then get into the store, get the bread, and then just repeat the whole thing in the reverse order. This is the instructions, right? So if I jumble any of these steps, for example, if I get into the car but instead of putting it into reverse, I change the gears first, catastrophe. If I actually go to the store, but instead of parking, I just lock the car, catastrophe, because maybe I have not put the car in the parking gear. Similarly, as you can understand, I think there is no need to elaborate further, because the whole thing should follow a sequence. Only then there is a meaning, so that the sequence has as much importance as instructions. Instructions means just get into the car, drive towards the store. These are instructions. The sequence is the ordering of these instructions, that is equally important. Why are these sequence of instructions there in the first place? They are there because we want to perform a specified task. Again, computer program, if you just blur the words computer here and here, you could just put the word like let us say we hire a secretary to help me with running this VBA classes, and I have written a small set of instructions for her saying that every day morning log into the vbaclasses.com website, check for any new comments or new questions our students are asking, and if you know the answers, reply to them. If you know which page has the answers, provide them a link to that. If you do not know the answers, note down the question URLs or question pages where which lessons had these questions, and send an email to Chandu so that I can respond to these questions. So this is a very simple instruction set I have prepared, and you could imagine instead of computer, this is my secretary doing this job, and being an efficient secretary, he will do this job for me and repeat the same set of instructions. So the same thing can also be done by computer. Of course, it might take a lot of programming to get this done, but at least a computer can also do. So essentially a computer program is like a piece of magic, or a piece of imagine you writing the instructions of getting the bread on the paper and giving it to computer. So computer can magically execute or go through these steps one after another and then finish the specified task for you. So that is what a program is. The art of writing these things, the art or the process we use to write such programs is called as programming. So the purpose of VBA classes is to teach you how to write programs in VBA language to communicate with computers, so that computer can do certain part of the job using Excel. Of course, we are using Excel here because VBA is coupled with Excel. Of course, you can also use VBA to write programs to control Word or PowerPoint or Access, but those are out of scope for our sessions. Here the important thing is, whenever we are giving a set of instructions, the instructions can be in any language, right? So imagine I have a secretary who speaks only Telugu. Telugu is the language, my mother tongue, and we speak Telugu in a certain geographical part of India. So I can give the instructions in Telugu to my secretary, and he can execute these instructions for me. Imagine I am talking to my son and I am telling him a simple task like clear up all your toys, put them in a big cover, and then put it on the top of the table. This is the task we give them every day morning, every day evening. When they're done playing, we just tell them, okay, now it's time to put everything together and put it. I would not tell these instructions to him in neither Telugu nor English. Instead, we use the that sweet language that kids speak in half broken words, no grammar, nothing. So we just tell them, and we have to repeatedly tell them, because with the kids, right, they don't follow the instructions exactly, so you have to tell them, repeat the things, you have to remind them that they have forgotten one step. For example, if it was my son or daughter and they're picking up all these blocks and then putting them in the bag, they might forget a few that are under the cot or near the couch or something, and then we have to tell them, hey, there's one more there, hey, there's one more there. And sometimes they might just think, okay, now it's playtime, so just overthrow the bag and start getting out the blocks. So we have to remind them, no, we are putting them back in, not getting them out. But computers are not kids, at least most computers are. So you can give a set of instructions to the computer in a defined language, like just as humans communicate with each other in various languages, computers can also have their own languages. So VBA is one such language that computers speak, especially when they're dealing with Office group of products, that is Excel, Word, Access, and PowerPoint, and things like that. Of course, there are various other languages. There is a language called C. It's one of the very not primitive, but it is very popular language used by many people all over the world to write programs during their early stages of programming careers. And there are various types of languages, not just based on the words and phrases the language uses, but the kind of technique the language uses. For example, there are certain set of languages that are used to program websites. Imagine you go to Amazon.com and click on a button and purchase a nice laptop bag for your wife or your husband, and the whole thing that runs in the background that actually processes your credit card, puts an order for the bag, communicates with the warehouse, tells that this particular bag has to be picked up and shipped to this address, sets the expectations with shipping partners, and if the bag is not manufactured or maintained by Amazon, then maybe they are using a third party to deliver it, so then they have to communicate with that. All these things happening in the background, and those sort of languages are called as web programming languages. There are languages like PHP and Perl and various things, ASP, JSP, things like that, including. And then there are certain things that are done at one place, certain things that are done at other places. For example, when you are interacting with Amazon.com website, some things happen on your screen. You click a button and your cart immediately shows that you have one item. These are little things of program that run inside and increment the cart value. Let us say you have added a shopping laptop bag, and now you just remember that maybe you need a spare charger too, so you add that. Now 1 becomes 2. So incrementing that 1 to 2, just adding one more item to it. Those kind of little things can be done on your computer itself. Your computer need not go all the way to Amazon.com and update it. Those kind of things are done at your end. They are called as client side. Things like that. But I think we have had a good introduction of what programming is all about. So let us move on, and I'm just going to get rid of these screen drawings. So as you can imagine, computer is our secretary. We can tell the computer whatever we want in a defined set of instructions, and then computer can follow it, provided computer can actually understand. Now remember, unlike humans, even unlike human beings, even my son can understand many things that we speak, and my son and daughter, they can follow, and they're barely 18-19 months old, right? But computers are very, very dumb. I mean, they are dumber than my son, if you ask me. So you must actually spell out everything very clearly for the computer. You cannot just imagine that computer will understand what you meant. Maybe some computers are smart enough, maybe some programming languages are smart enough, but in most languages that computers speak, you need to be very elaborate, explain everything that the computer needs to do, and explain the computer, tell the computer that in case you go wrong, do this. So everything you have to tell, only then the computers work. But provided you follow that protocol, computers are like our secretaries. They can do our job. And remember, there is no gender bias, right? You can imagine George Clooney as a secretary for you. It's just that I've used an image so that we have blank canvas and you can just listen to me talk instead of focusing on any bullet points. So computers are like our secretaries. You can imagine computer as your lady secretary or a gent secretary that is getting things done for you, provided you communicate with the computer in the language that computer understands. Now comes the interesting part. How do we write a simple program, get into the programming? So all programming languages have this tradition of hello world program. It is so simple that it kind of takes away the fear of programming. It is just like I don't know French, right? I don't know French much, but if I have to learn French, the things that I would be first learning are not alphabet. I mean, only as a kid I would probably be focusing on things like alphabet. But once we are old enough and we are communicating already in English or French or any other language that you may be speaking, German, Swedish or Russian or Hindi or whatever, then if you have to learn a different language, the approach we use is pretty straightforward. We just take this person and tell them this is how you would say hello. That's it. I mean, now you are ready to shake hands with somebody from that entirely different language and culture and region of the world and say hello to them because you have learned how to say hello. So that's what I would probably be focusing if I'm learning French today. I would just ask, can you tell me how would I say hello? How would I introduce myself? And then maybe interesting things. Then once we learn those things, then we'll slowly get into things like how do you grammatically structure a sentence and communicate coherently? How do you, ask for something and how do you understand what they're speaking? How do you detect various dialects or slang that they are using. These finer nuances of the language only will come at a later point, but the first thing that we do is learn how to say hello, right? So the same thing with computers too. When you are learning computer programming languages, to take away the fear, many programming languages have this very simple hello world program. Of course, the programming language itself would not come with any such code. It's just that any instructors will prefer a hello world program so that you can learn how to speak to computer. So here is a hello world program written in VBA that would print the message hello world to you when you run the program. Here what do we mean by run? Run means we are actually asking computer to follow these 3 lines of instruction and finish the task. The task here is say hello. I'm going to jump to Excel so I can show how this particular code runs. Once you are inside Excel, this is Excel 2010 for those of you who may not realize. It looks more or less similar to Excel 2007. And right click and say view code. You must enable the developer toolbar. If it is not already available, you can turn it on from file options. I think this is already okay. I think in Excel 2010 they are showing it by default, if I'm not wrong. Otherwise it used to be somewhere here in Excel 2007. Anyhow, so right click and say view code, and this is when we get into the thick of things. This is the Visual Basic Editor. No need to worry about what this is and what it does and all that, because you will be learning those things shortly in the next few weeks. So for the time being, we'll just focus on talking to the computer and getting it say hello world to us. So I have 3 different pieces of code written already, 3 different ways of saying hello world if you ask me. And this is the code. This is exactly the same 3 lines: sub hello world, debug.print hello world, end sub. If you look at our presentation, this is exactly what it has, isn't it? So I come here and now I run this program by pressing this little button, run button. It looks exactly like our old days tape recorder buttons or even a CD player button. This button arrow indicates that you are running something, that you are now playing this little set of instructions for the computer, and this means you just want to pause it wherever it is, and this means you want to restart everything. For the time being, we'll just run this by putting the cursor somewhere inside and play. It has finished running. I don't see any hourglass kind of thing now. But where is the hello world? Where is it? I mean, I cannot see anything. That's because it is printing, but we have not asked Excel to show us the window where the messages are coming. So I'll go to view and say show me the immediate window. Immediate window is where all the debug.print messages will come. So here I am seeing hello world. If I come here and run it once again, I will see one more hello world. Right? Debug.print means just print the message hello world here. So this is a very crude and very simple way to talk to computer, in this case talk to Excel, and ask Excel to say hello to us. Cool, right? I suggest that you stop the presentation here and go ahead and actually play with this little piece of code by typing it on your own into a VBA module. You have to put it in a module. If you do not have any modules, you can right click and say insert module. Then it's not necessary, but at least you can write. The second and third ways of telling hello worlds in VBA, of course, you can just show the message here, but a little more fun would be this. Hello world, but as a means of dialog box, a small box, like the computers would show this box when you are trying to save an Excel file, when you are trying to close an Excel file. Excel would prompt you and say, hey, you have not saved this file, do you want to save it? So similarly, here is a little box that says hello world. Inside it says I have a pretty little box, and if you click OK, that's it, it's done. So here we are using a little little thing called MSG box. We are asking Excel, show me a message box with this in the message, and just show the OK button. VBA OK only means just put the OK button alone, and the prompt has to be hello world. We will learn about these things in a later point in the course. And the third thing is actually showing hello world by printing the message wherever we are. So here we are in this cell and I want to show hello world there. So I'll come to the VBA editor and go to module 3, and I'm just going to resize it like this so I can see what happens. When I'm running here, I can see that the message comes here. And now you can also run the code by pressing function key F5, so you don't really have to press that button. There you go, the message comes there. We'll select a different cell and come and press F5 once again, it runs. F5. Great. So hello world, but instead of telling it to us through debug window or through a message box, now it is coming as a value inside a cell. And here the code is pretty simple again. What we are telling Excel is wherever you are, whatever may be the active cell, the current cell that I have selected, just set its value to hello world. Let us see what happens if I select 10 cells and run this. Only the first one will be taken. Great. So that is a very simple hello world program. The purpose of hello world programs is to take away the fear of communication with the other party, in this case the computer, and actually introduce you to some pretty simple very basic examples. So here you have seen 3 examples, and by the end of VBA course you will probably be able to communicate much better with computers and get a lot more things done. Sometimes so many more than how much you can get done with your secretary or yourself manually. Now let us get into some programming concepts. In this section, what we will learn is we will be learning about various programming concepts like variables, operators, conditions, loops, exception handling, blah blah blah. We'll get into each of these topics in separate slides. Variables, what do we mean by variables? Variable means, in very plain English, if I have to explain variables to you, variables are like little boxes where computer keeps the data while doing the work. So let us say, for the time being, let us forget computers programming everything, and you are the computer, and I am a different person, and I am asking you to do certain job for me. So go ahead and take a blank piece of paper and pen, and just do not use them until I say so. And I want you to perform a simple calculation for me. I want you to add up 100 to 200, and then I want you to multiply this result with 3 and then add 400 to it and then divide the whole thing by 5. Unless you are really smart, I guess you have joined this program, so it means you should be smart, but at least we can safely say that it does take a lot of attention, and you have to be really on your toes to do this set of instruction without requiring pen and paper. And if I actually increase the complexity by a bit more by adding complex operations like raise it to a power of 3 or calculate the logarithm of certain things, or repeat a particular step 6 times, then you would definitely need some help of pen and paper. So you can put some temporary values that you are coming, intermediate values, and then do the additional arithmetic without cramming everything inside your head and getting the wrong result, right? This is the same reason why we have been using notebooks all along in schools, and even in office also. When you go to a meeting, you have a notepad where you will write down the notes. Of course, we have a pretty able memory, and we can remember a lot of things, but still we don't rely on our brain when it comes to things like that. We just rely on a pen and paper, a notepad or something, because we want to keep track of what is happening, and then it also gives us flexibility to focus on the important things. Everything else goes onto the paper, and when required we will just refer to it. So the same way, computers also need some working space where they can do all the rough work, where they can do all the simple calculations. And you can, for the time being, you can imagine variables as computer's way of saying, here is some little information I'm going to keep track of while I perform your set of instructions. Okay, so that is what variables are. A very simple example for a variable could be, of course, in the previous things what we saw is hello world examples. There is nothing required here, right? All we are doing is we are just printing hello world message. It's so simple that you don't really need any concepts like variables. But in real life, nobody says hello world all the time. Maybe in the first day of learning the language, you will say hello world. But eventually you will, you want to go to a level where you can, maybe ask girl out in the language, or go on a date, or maybe do shopping, or visit a unknown place and understand what is going on there, learn about their culture and things like that. And for all these things, learning hello is not enough. You have to actually equip yourself with various little tools, and variables is one such thing. Let us take a very simple example of a tracker that you are building in Excel. What you want to do is every day morning you get a report from your external system like SAP or a reporting system. It just sends a text file to you, and you would put this data in Excel, and you would just go ahead and format certain dates in certain format, and add up some numbers and generate some report. This is what you're doing as part of your job. And you want to do this whole thing through VBA so that you can save a lot more time and maybe focus on learning French. So how would you go about telling computer to do this job? So you will tell computer, take the data from SAP that comes as a text file. For each item in that, for each line in that report, every second item should be formatted as a date with date, month, year format. And fifth column where we have currency, you need to put dollars there. And seventh item, which is I think profit ratio, we just want to put a percentage there. So if it is 75, we want to put 75%. But obviously 75 cannot be just made into 75%. So computer has to take 75, divide it with 100, that becomes 0.75. Then put percentage on top, so it becomes 75%, something like that. Like that you tell computer. So this is the set of instructions you are doing. And sometimes you may want to tell computer, just take the third value and fourth value and add both of them, or take sixth value and eighth value and find out how many days are between these two. And for some of these calculations, computer would like to have some temporary space where they can do this calculation and report the result back. So that is where variables will become important. But unlike humans, if I am going to a meeting and if there are a lot of things going on, I know what to note down and I know where to note down on my notepad. I don't need my boss or the meeting organizer to tell me on the notepad, on the top left write the date, on the top right write the meeting location, and the bottom write the action points, and the middle write whatever we are discussing. No, that's not required. I can just do this myself because we are smart enough. But as we discussed earlier, computers are pretty dumb. So you need to tell the computer, use these variables. Only then computers will use the variables. For the time being, we'll stop the variable talk here, and we will revisit variables during introduction to VBA and VBA concepts and other modules that are there in the lessons. Just like variables, you also need to use some operators. If you go back to our earlier example where I told you to add up 100 to 200 and multiply it with 3, I am telling you take 100 plus, which means add, to 200. So there are various operators that computers rely on, for example, especially in programming languages. So plus, minus, division, star means multiplication, equal to means testing for the equality, or assigning one value to another. So it is like for example, we have written a simple program that calculates the sum of all the salaries in our department. So finally we want to print this sum of salaries. So we have made a variable that says sum of salaries. So sum of salaries equal to salary of employee 1 plus salary of employee 2 plus salary of employee 3. And then once the sum of salaries is calculated, we just say debug.print sum of salaries. So that is what equal to will be used for. Similarly, you can also use equal to as a question. You can ask computer, is the sum of salaries equal to 5,000? Now you are asking computer, compare these two and tell me whether they are equal. So that in that case, computer will find the answer as true or false, or yes or no in our world. But computers are more very mundane. So they think only in terms of true and false. Same way we have operators like less than, greater than. These are used for comparison. You can say a sum of salaries greater than 10,000. Then you can print a message saying, hey, we are paying too much of salary. Exclamation mark, it's used mainly to indicate negation of something. We will learn about these things, do not worry. Dot, as in dot is an operator we use in VBA to indicate off. For example, you can tell in Excel, if you have a cell and you want to find out what is the value of that cell, you can say cell dot value, meaning value of cell. The dot acts like a off parameter. At the rate, as in you could see this at the rate symbols everywhere, right, in email addresses. Similarly, at the rate has some meaning for computers too, especially in some programming languages. Percentage, as in percentage calculations or certain other things. This cap symbol is mainly used to indicate to computer that I want to raise one value to the power of other. So if you put 2 cap 3, that means 2 cube. Since there is no way to raise a number 3 above 2 using the traditional keyboard operations, we just rely on the cap to tell computer that I want to rise 2 3 times. Pipe symbol to indicate again these symbols mean different things in different programming languages, just like various hand gestures mean different things in different countries and cultures. For computers also, whatever pipe means in VBA could mean different things in a programming language like C. So that's what open brackets, closed brackets, semicolon, colon, things like that. So these are the operators that when you use along with variables and various other constructs of the program, you can coherently communicate with computer. Conditions, just like operators, there are also conditions in life. For example, if I am talking to my computer and I'm telling the computer, if it is let us say we want to automate certain portion of our job, and my job involves that on every Monday and on every Thursday I must produce certain report and email it to my boss. And on every other day, that is Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday, so Monday and Thursday being the days on which we produce a report for boss. So every other day, that is Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday, I want to make the report, but I will not send it to my boss. Instead, I am going to send this report to the head of the department, 2 different people. So I tell the computer, produce the report. That is the first part. Once the report is done, if the day of week happens to be Monday or Thursday, send it to this guy, else send it to that guy. As if I am talking in plain English, the same way I must tell the computer also. So there we come to the conditional statements called if, then, else. So if this is the condition, do this, else do that. There are multiple ways to communicate with computers, especially in VBA. And you will learn all these things in much more detail with examples at a later point. Similarly, select is a different kind of thing where if we have more than 1 or 2 conditions, then speaking in English becomes very difficult. So what we do is we actually tell in a different way. For example, you can imagine that I have a crazy habit when it comes to wearing ties. So I want to say, if it is Monday, I'm going to wear blue tie. If it is Tuesday, I'm going to wear red tie. If it is Wednesday, I'm going to wear brown tie. If it is Thursday, I'm going to wear my checkered tie. And if it is Friday, I'm not going to wear any tie. So there are 5 if conditions, and it becomes a fairly lengthy statement. At some point, whoever listens to this might lose the attention and they might start thinking other things like, why is this guy so crazy? So to simplify things, I can just say, here is a little table I have prepared. On first column, I'll just put the week name, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the second column, I put the tie color. And I give this table to somebody, maybe my secretary, and I tell my secretary that, just refer to this table and fetch the corresponding tie based on it every day morning to me. So my secretary wakes up in the morning, looks at the table and say, yeah, today is Tuesday, let me get the red tie to my boss. So that kind of operation is called select. in a loose terminology. We will learn about this again during our introduction to VBA lessons at a later point. Then just like the conditions, you also want to sometime use certain operators like AND or NOT. For example, I just got a little more crazier and I thought, if it is Monday and if it happens to the first of month, so if it is a Monday and first of month, then I'm going to wear 2 ties, not 1. I'm going to wear 2. I mean, it's the new chic thing happening in this part of the world, and I thought I'll do this every first of the month if it happens to be Monday. So there is an AND condition, right? Similarly, if it is a Friday or if it is a holiday, I don't want to wear any tie. So there comes the OR condition. So those kind of things can also be used. These are called AND or NOT. Again, almost all good programming languages have these structures so that you can communicate effectively to the computer and get things done. Now comes the interesting part. Just as we are telling about conditions, you may sometimes want to tell computer to repeat a particular task several times. For example, going back to the example of the SAP report that we are receiving. The report has, sometimes the report has 500 lines, sometimes the report has 600, sometimes the report has 700, depending on how many orders we have received previous day. So the number changes. So you don't really have to tell the computer 700 times that take every second column and put it in the date format. No, you can just tell the computer one time that every second column has to be in the date format. But you can tell the computer repeat the same instruction 700 times, each for each row, just as you would tell your secretary. So if you are giving this report to your secretary and asking her to type it into some word or something like that, you won't really tell your secretary that if for every line you don't stand behind her and tell her yeah, just format this and state. Instead, you would just give her one instruction saying for each of the lines in this report, second column has to be in the date format. Just like that, you can tell the computer also. There are a couple of varieties of loops. There are actually more varieties, but the popular ones are, there is a loop type called as for loop. For loop means this for loop actually translate loosely into the way you speak in English. So for if I am telling about this report to my secretary, I would tell for each line in this report, do this. Same way, if I am telling the computer for each line in the text file, do this. Or in other way, you can tell do this for 700 times. Similarly, while means sometimes we don't know the number of times we have to repeat depends on a certain condition. For example, I don't know how long the report is, but I certainly know that the report ends when a line does not have anything in it. I mean, just blank. If there is a blank line, that's it. That's where the report ends. So I can tell just do this operation while the lines are not blank. So if the line happens to be blank, it will stop. So that is another way to communicate to the computer and tell the computer to repeat itself a particular set of tasks until it meets certain condition. Then there is a special type of looping called goto. It is a primitive type of looping used in earlier, very early stages of programming until the loops have been invented. It is called as goto, and it is no longer recommended that we use goto, but at least I have kept it here because in VBA there is a way to write goto statements and some people do it. Goto means at a certain point in the instructions we are just telling the computer stop here and jump there. So it is like I am telling my secretary type this report, but when you see the date 2013 July 14, this weird date 2013 7/14, stop the report and come and tell me come and tell me who the customer is. So that sort of task is called as goto. Sometimes you may want to tell the computer do whatever you're doing, but at certain point just stop and do something else. That is the way of telling goto. And of course excuse the colorful slide, but while we are doing all these things, there might be a lot of things that will happen that will make us say, oops, something went bad. It's like the famous song by Britney, right? So I did it again. What happens is when we are telling instructions to the computer, we have to be extra careful. And sometimes, no matter how careful we are and how elaborate we are in our instructions to the computer, mistakes happen. So that part of the programming where we handle the mistakes is called as exception handling. A simple exception handling code is shown here. It is not really a code that you should try because it doesn't work. What we are saying is, on error, play oops, I did it again, something else, something else. So essentially a computer will be doing these instructions, and at any point if an error happens, Excel will or the computer will start playing this song for you. Of course this will not work directly because it's not correct with the syntax and other things. But you can imagine that when we are talking to the computer, sometimes the computers get confused and they may not follow the instructions correctly. And this can happen for various number of reasons. For example, you might think the report has 700 lines, so you might have written a for loop to repeat for 700 times. But if the report has only 620 lines, then computer doesn't know what to do from 621 line onwards, because there is nothing there. So then computer comes back and behaves nasty and says, I don't know what to do now. That so you can intelligently handle those things directly inside your programs, so that computers do not freak out and come back and report errors. Instead, you can tell computer, if there is an error, do this, otherwise just follow this standard protocol. So that's what we call as exception handling. The next concept in programming is called as modularization. Now the best way to understand modularization is to look at a car. Many of us look at car and see a car, but in fact, if you step back one bit and look at car at the abstract level, at very basic level, a car is not really a car. It's actually thousands of parts meticulously put together, right? Here is a car image, a toy car, not really a car, that shows various things that are actually exploded kind of thing. But when you put everything together, you have a nice car. So that's what a car is. Similarly, a computer program can also be thought in that way. A computer program is made up of several other smaller programs. So if I ask you to develop a payroll program can be thought of as generating payrolls, pay slips, and emailing to the slip details to various employees, as well as sending an instruction to the bank so that bank can actually transfer the money. So for somebody from very far out, it looks like just one little payroll program that is doing all the job. But if you are actually developing it, you will realize that a payroll program comprises of various little other things. For example, there is an email program that sends the email. There is a piece of program that communicates with the bank. There is another program that calculates the salary. There is another program that actually prints out the pay slips or creates the pay slips in PDF format. And when all of these are put together, we get the payroll program. So that is what modularization means. Why is it important to know the modularization concept? It's because several times we don't really write programs like Hello World. Hello World is just one line, nothing else is there. In real life, you would be developing programs like payroll or some other thing. And the important thing to understand is, only when you modularize your program, only when you divide it into smaller pieces, it becomes manageable. You can tell somebody to write the emailing part. You can ask somebody else to write about the PDF part. You can maybe outsource the part of communicating the bank to a third party, like a payroll processing company like ADP or something. So things like that can be done, and you get the work done very easily. Plus, by modularizing, you can reuse portions of your code. For example, the email program, once you write, you can not only use for payrolls, but you can also use it for some other things, like communicating about 401ks or pensions, things like that to the employees, using that email program, because it just sends email. It doesn't really care what is being sent. So that is the purpose of modularization. Same way, car companies would modularize and make tires and nuts and screws. So the same screws can be used anywhere else. Same tires can be used on other cars too. Same set of steering wheel can be used on other cars too. But maybe some things are unique, but some things are not. They can be pulled together to create some unique experience. Same thing with computers. Modularization is an important concept, and we will be driving this and showing you examples of this throughout our VBA classes. The next part of programming concept is commenting and documentation. Comments are like pieces of code that we write to tell ourselves what is going on. These are the little things in the program that computers completely ignore. Right? For example, if I go back to this and debug.print hello world, here is how you would write comments in VBA. You will use a single quote and then say this program prints a message hello world. Right? Whenever you write a comment and go to the next line, Excel understands that you have commented, so it kind of puts the whole thing in green. And if I run this, I still get the message hello world. Computer has not done anything for this line because it's a comment. It doesn't make any sense. That also means you can write anything here. You could write this program would would order me a pizza. You can write anything, but from the computer's mindset, it doesn't really matter. It's not really ordering a pizza for you. Sorry for that. It's just printing the hello world message. That's all. It's not ordering a pizza. You can say this programming is ordering a pizza. It's just like labeling a box. You can put the label saying lots of gold, but whatever the box contains, it contains that only, nothing else. So that's what commenting is. We need to use comments because many times whatever code we write can be handed over to somebody else. Especially in case of Excel files, you might have developed a payroll Excel file or a dashboard or something like that, and your colleague might be looking at the code and wondering what the hell is going on. So it's important that you add enough comments so that your colleagues can follow it. But the most important purpose of commenting is to tell you what is going on, because after barely 6 or 7 days you might forget what you have written. So it's better to just put some comments, just like we put sticky notes on things that we might forget, or add side notes in the meeting minutes to tell us what is going on. Commenting is your way of saying this code is doing this part, this logic is happening here. Graphical elements are actually, this is not really a programming concept as such, but we are discussing this here because as part of VBA we will be interacting. It's like you are now asking computer to produce some graphical elements with which users can interact. Common examples are buttons, radio buttons, option buttons, check boxes, combo boxes, scroll bars, images, and so much more. And I don't think I need to give any examples because you've been using computers for a while and you have seen all these things everywhere. If you try to close an Excel file without saving, Excel will throw a warning message which has some buttons on it. Click on something if something happens. If you try to save a file, Excel opens a dialog box asking you to select a folder and then select the file type, which is nothing but a combo box, things like that. And if you are on a big web page, you will have a scroll bar at the right and you can scroll. Images you have seen. So these are the various things that you can also put in VBA programs or many other computer programs to create rich graphical experience for the persons using your programs. Just to recap, we have learned about various programming concepts like variables, which are used by computers to keep track of what is going on, small areas of memory where they can note down the information and perform the calculations. We have learned about operators using which computers can do certain operations like summing up, multiplication, or off, and things like that. We learned about conditions like if and then, select. We also learned about loops, a for loop, while loop, what they mean and what computers think of it when you say for loop. We learned how to the meaning of exception handling, what happens when there is an exception, how computers treat that. We learned about modularization, the concept of dividing a large program into smaller chunks and meaningful chunks, and then uh, putting everything together to create the complex thing. We learned the purpose of commenting, examples of commenting. We also saw some graphical elements which will help us enhance the programs. So that is the various set of programming concepts. Okay, I must stop now because there is 30 more minutes of lesson in which we will be learning about various programming jargons and some tips for the programming beginners. But I have to stop here because that part of the lesson will be available only when you join the VBA class I'm conducting. So if you are interested in the VBA class, if you love to learn how to use Excel VBA to automate your work, to automate any report generations or any kind of modeling or any other type of work that you do with Excel, then joining our VBA class is a fantastic option for you. We have designed a curriculum that helps beginners and intermediate level Excel and VBA users to learn VBA properly, understand the whole gamut of things that are available, and then also create programs and build Excel files that can wow their audience, including their bosses, colleagues, and friends. And we have received a very good response to this program so far, and I'm hoping that you will also find this program very interesting and join us. For more details about this program, please visit us at http://chendu.org/wp/VBA classes. Right, this is the URL. Please take a note of this and please visit us this website so that you can understand more about this program, and if the enrollment is open, please join us. I am saying this because we will be closing enrollments for the first batch on May 20th, and then the second batch enrollments will open once again in September 2011. So I hope you have enjoyed the introduction to programming lesson so far. It has been a big lesson, about 55 minutes or 54 minutes, but I think it is worth it because there is so much to explain about programming, and there is a lot of confusion to what programming is, because whenever you hear the word programming and whenever you approach somebody who has been programming, they are so much into this world that it takes a lot of time to explain, and I think that is the same problem that I do have. But I have tried to create material and slides that explain the concepts of programming in familiar analogies, and I hope I have been able to help you understand the whole purpose of programming, how computers think and how we communicate with them. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and we hope to see you in our VBA classes. This is Chandu. You have a great day ahead. Bye bye.